were available. We haven't configured them yet,
Okay.
but then we at least looked at the stages that are available.
Okay.
Okay. One thing to remember, so basically a stage performs certain computational function, right? A stage performs, it can filter something, it can import something, it can join something, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now one thing to remember, that adding a stage can change the number of records in the data set. So a stage can change the number of rows in a data set. How not just number of rows, it can also change the number of columns in a data set. How does it do that? We'll go ahead and see that in a bit. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead and talk about the various stages that are available. Okay, so the first stage is import stage. Which type of data set did we see an import stage? Or out of tables, base data sets and derived data sets,
Mm-hmm.
where did we see import stage yesterday?
Derived data sets.
Yeah, so this is the first stage in every pipeline of a derived data set. What does it do? It basically imports data from a source. And what would be that source for a derived data set?
It could be a table or BDS based data set.
Or it could also be other derived data set.
Yeah, it could be.
And for a derived data set, that source is the output of a table or an existing data set. So when I say an existing data set, it could be an existing base data set or an existing derived data set. Can I delete an import stage?
No, usually it is the first stage. So I don't think you can delete.
So you cannot delete or add an import stage, right? So when you create a derived data set, Workday automatically adds it.
Right.
And if you delete a import stage, basically you're deleting the entire derived data set, right? You cannot just delete an import stage. That's not possible. Okay, parse. A parse stage similar to an import stage is automatically added by Workday to a table or base data set, and it describes or is used to import data into Prism from an external source in a tabular format. So the whole idea of a parse stage is it is used to import data from an external source. When I say external source, external to Prism. It could be Workday custom report, or it could be a file, or it could be an SFTP. So basically that's what a table or a base data set does, right? So similar to an import stage, it is automatically added by Workday. Similar to an import stage, we cannot delete or add a parse stage on our own. Okay, the next phase and the next stage, something we have not looked at yet, is manage fields. Now this stage, let's go ahead and look at it now. So where can we add a manage field stage? Can we add it on a base data set, a derived data set,
For
tables, all?
tables, we can add a field. A base data set, I don't think you can add.
Let's go ahead and look at that now. So a manage field stage is a type of stage that basically enables you to view field changes, basically select certain fields and also edit fields. So manage field stage allows you to basically, let's go ahead and see what I mean by that. Okay, so let's see, we imported employee details, we imported survey details. Let's go ahead and open the employee details. Okay, so this is our employee details field, right?
Mhm.
Now, if I go ahead and, oh, this is a table. Okay, this is a table. In table, we cannot add and edit transformations.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about another stage and then we'll look at manage fields stage,
Okay.
or let me do it now. That should be fine. This is, okay, we created a derived data set as well. So let me open a derived data set. Let me also open a base data set. Okay, so on a derived data set, this is a derived data set that I have opened.
Mm-hmm.
If you see, I have the option to edit the transformations
Mm-hmm.
on a, it makes sense if I go ahead and rename it. So this is derived data set. Uh, okay, I am trying to figure out how do I change the name of a data set as it through edit transformations. Yes, it is to edit transformations. So I want to rename it as PDS employee survey details. Okay, I am going to save it and then I will refresh it. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so here I have a base data set, and if you see, I have the option to add a transformation to a base data set. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm selecting that. I have a derived data set. Once again, I have the option to add a transformation to a derived data set. And this is a table, and I don't have the option to add a transformation to table because in table we cannot do any transformations. So if you remember, we can add certain pipelines or certain transformations to a base data set. We can do all set of transformations to a derived data set, and in table we cannot do any transformations. So if we
Right.
want to transform any data in a table, we'll have to create a derived data set, and we can see that we don't have an option to edit to any transformations. Okay, now I have this base data set. Now here, if you see, oh sorry, I have this derived data set, and
Mm-hmm.
here I can add any of those fields. I can,
Okay.
on a base data set, I can add only 3 of these stages: manage
Okay.
fields, group by, and filter. Okay, now whenever we created our data set, Workday automatically added certain fields for us, right?
Right.
It
Right.
automatically. So what I want is I want to remove those fields. So I
Okay.
have imported this employee details. So I imported this ZF training employee details, this table, into this derived data set when I created it, right? That's
Right.
what we did yesterday.
Right.
Now I want to modify some fields, or I want to add certain transformations into it. So this is where I'll add a stage, and let's select the manage field stage. So I'm selecting the manage field stage. Now, what does a manage field stage do? A manage field stage can be added to both base as well as derived data set. And this is where you can select certain fields, edit fields, as well as see what kind of field changes are happening.
Okay.
Okay, so here at this point in time, what changes can I do? I don't want these fields that Workday automatically added to be carried forward in my data set. So at this point in time, all these fields are visible. When I say
Okay.
visible, they are all part of the data set. If you see WPA load ID. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to remove these fields or hide these fields going forward. So I'm basically hiding these fields, right? So
Okay.
the second thing I want to do is I probably want to rename some of these fields. So I'm renaming this to termination date. I can do any other changes. I can make name changes to these fields.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing I can do is if Workday has identified the wrong field type, I can go ahead and change the field type. Okay.
Okay.
So I can do schema changes within the manage field stage. But when I say schema changes, I cannot go ahead and delete any field. I
Right.
cannot go ahead and add a new field as such,
Okay.
right? That's what I can do with a schema change. Here, I can change the field type. Even for
Okay.
these field types, if you see, I can change the business object. So Workday
Okay.
identifies this is an instance field or a multi-instance field. But then
Mm-hmm.
I realized that Workday has not identified the right business object for this instance. I can come in here and I can select a different business object for it.
Okay.
All right. So what all changes can I do? Uh, First, where can I add a manage field stage? It can be added to both base and derived data set. And what changes can be done? You can hide
Right.
fields. You can change field names, and you can change field types and associated business object. If it is a numeric field, let me see if there is any numeric field available here. If there is a numeric field, for example, age, let's say I select this to be a numeric field. I can come in here and I can also select the precision of that field. So by default, it says there would be 19 digits before decimal and there would be
Mm-hmm.
0 digits after decimal. I can say no, there would be X digits after decimal or whatever.
Okay.
So for a numeric field, I can also make those changes. I'll leave it as long because I don't want this to have any precession, right? This is simply age of the employee. Okay, then once I've done with that, I can preview changes. This is available for certain stages wherein I can preview the changes that we are doing. So now after making changes, none of those fields that have hidden are available. So as we mentioned, a stage can change the number of records in a data set. So here it is changing the number of columns in the data set. And I can add some description and I can say done. So the output of this stage, when I click on this stage here, if you see this stage, when I click on any stage for that matter, it shows me the output of that particular stage. So when I created this derived data set, we imported data into this derived data set. So when I click on this import stage, it shows me that all those fields or all those columns are part of that stage, right? Now this fed into this manage field stage. And when I click here, this is where I did those transformations. So now the output of this manage field stage is I have removed those fields.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. So basically, on the import stage, you did when the import stage is nothing but your table or your
yes. So import stage is showing me exactly same data as my table.
Right.
So any stage in so whenever I click on any stage, right, it shows me data as of the output of that stage.
Okay.
So what did this import stage do? It simply imported all data from the table.
Right.
So that is the output of that import stage.
Right.
This table, if you see, had all of these, how many fields?
27.
Yeah, it had 27 fields,
right.
including all of these.
Right.
So this has 27 fields
Minus
in total.
Okay, yeah. Manage stage, manage fields, we removed 5 of them, I guess. So it will.
And when I come to here, it has 22 fields.
Okay.
Right? So whenever we click on any stage, it shows the output of that stage.
Okay.
Right? Now I can, if I want, I can delete this manage field stage. Right? So I can come in here, it gives me the delete option. Here I can only edit this import stage. I don't have an option to delete it. Right? So your import and parse stage cannot be deleted.
Right.
Okay. So that is your manage field stage. Now at any stage, you can add a calculated field. So even here, I can add a calculated field, right? It gives me an option. But then as a best practice, and what I prefer is whenever, usually if I have to add a manage a calculated field, I do it at a manage field stage, or I add a manage field stage, because that way I know, okay, there are 10 stages here. Else, if we add a calculated field anywhere, it usually becomes a bit difficult to understand it, right? When we have a manage field stage, my personal preference is, okay, I know there is a if there is a calculated field in that data set, it would be at a manage field stage and I can directly go there.
Right.
And it shows me how many, any which was at any stage, when we click on it, it shows me how many calculated fields are there, how many fields are there. Okay. So this is visible on any stage, but then that's a kind of best practice. Okay. Any which ways, we'll not talk about calculated field just now. We'll just see one calculated field in a bit that would be required. All right, so that is the manage fields stage. Now, let's talk about, so here we have two base data sets. One is, sorry, we have one base data set. wherein we imported data for 2022.
Right.
Right? And then we have this table wherein we imported 2020 and 2021 data.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Now, why did we do that? Because we wanted to explore one stage. Okay, so now I want to club all this data together, right?
Okay.
Because 2020 and 2021 survey results are in this table, and 2022 survey results are in this base data set.
Okay.
Right? Let me just quickly rename it. So I want to rename it to, this is why it's a best practice to add the object,
Table or
else it becomes confusing. Okay, so I have this table wherein I have survey results for 2020 and 2021, and I have this base data set wherein I have survey results for 2022. Now, all of these, both of these objects have exactly same number of columns, right? Because we are basically loading the same data.
Right.
So, okay, but it is distributed around across two different objects. Now, how do I join them, right? Or how do I club this data together, bring this data together? Now, we already know if I click on this base data set, I cannot do that because a base data set doesn't give me those options, right? So we'll have to create a new data set, which would be a derived data set, right? So I'm going to my data catalog. I'm creating my derived data set. Okay. I'm calling it ZF training. So I want to start with, let me refresh this. Yeah, now it's updated. So I'm creating a, so these are the two objects I want to import, right? Employee survey details, which is a table, and employee survey details 1, which is a base data set. Here I'm basically selecting my starting table, right? Which will, or the starting object, which will be used to create my derived data set. Now, in this case, I can either select a table or base data set. It doesn't matter because all I'm looking to do is join exactly same data for 2 different years in 2 different objects. However, just for the sake of consistency, because this is for 2020 and 21, that table, I'll select my primary pipeline as this table, right?
Okay.
As I mentioned, in this case, it really doesn't matter. I could have selected, or I can select this base data set as well as my primary pipeline. Okay, so I'm selecting this table as the source of data for the derived data set I'm creating. I am saying okay. And
one quick question. So you are creating data sets,
a derived
a pipeline, right?
Sorry?
You are creating a data set, but you are creating one more derived data set.
Right.
But you created a pipeline before. I thought you will add.
No.
Okay.
So if you remember, or Workday automatically adds import pipeline. Workday automatically adds the primary pipeline, and within that primary pipeline, Workday automatically adds import stage, part stage based on the type of data set.
Right.
So when we create a derived data set, let me start again. This is all we do. I would click on create button. I would click on derived data set because that's what I'm creating, or I'll select table, or I'll select any one of these options for base data set. So here I want to create a derived data set. I'll select that. Now derived data set, it doesn't import data from outside Workday, right? So a derived data set, is created using data using either an existing table or base data set or a derived data set. So the next task is ask me to select which is that table or base data set or derived data set you want to use to create this new derived data set. So I'm selecting this table and I'm saying yes.
Right.
Okay.
So that means so this is the confusion. So you have created data set, which is the derived data set by selecting an import, which is fine. So will it automatically create a pipeline, or
yes, it automatically creates the primary pipeline.
Okay.
It automatically creates that import stage within the primary pipeline.
Right. I understand. That sounds fine. Now you are creating one more derived data set with respect to importing the data with respect to the table, right? That's what you are trying to do. Right. So I thought we have to, instead of creating a new derived data set, we just need to attach the table to the pipeline. That's what my thought is. But
we can do that, but so see, it all depends on how you want to structure it. So this is what I want to do. See, this is what I want to do. How many sources of data do we have? We have, let me do it in a different tab. So first thing we created from Workday, we created a custom report called employee details. Right. We imported this data into a table. Right. Which is our TBL employee details.
Right. And you have created two base data sets for 2020, 21, and one more BDS for 22.
My second data source is external, which is basically survey results. Right. One of that is loaded into table. So table survey. And then which is basically data for 2020 and 2021. And then I created a base data set for survey, which has data for 22. Ultimately, now I would join this survey results with employee details, which will allow me to know which employee did what survey. Right? That is my ultimate goal. But before I do that, see, I have survey results spread across two different sources. I want to bring my all survey results together. And for doing that, I'm creating a new. So for this table, I have already created a DDS, right? Which is what you're referring to. Right? Ultimately, I'll join this survey data in this DDS. So what you're saying is right. But before I can do that, I want to bring this entire survey results together. So I'm now creating a new DDS, which will basically allow me to bring survey results together. And then I'll club this DDS with this DDS. So instead of making it just simple, I thought let's make it a bit more complex so that we can see other use cases. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so this is what we are trying to achieve right now. I'm saying save. So this creates my primary pipeline for this derived data set. If I click on edit transformation, this has created my primary pipeline, right? Which is this table, which I imported. And this table, which I have imported, becomes part of my import stage. Okay. Now at this point in time, I can add another stage, a manage field stage, to basically remove all of these unnecessary values. Okay, but then I'll not do that right now. So now I have created a derived data set, which is basically an import of this table. Right? So it has details for 2020 and 2021. Now to this, I also want to join details of 2022.
Which is a BDS.
Which is a BDS. Now, what did we say a derived data set can do? It can have multiple pipelines. right? Each of those pipeline would be coming from different sources. So at this point in time, all the objects we have created have only had one pipeline. So let's see how an additional pipeline gets added. So now I want to add a new stage. Now the stage that I want to add is a union stage. So I'm selecting union stage. Now this is where it is asking me to this secondary or select the secondary pipeline to join or to do this union with the primary pipeline. Right? So a union stage or certain stages involve more than one pipeline. So when you select that stage, Workday would automatically ask you to identify which is the secondary pipeline with which you want to do this union. Okay. So now when I select union stage, the secondary pipeline that I select will be combined with the primary pipeline for this derived data set, which we already know is the table. So I would come in here and I want to add another pipeline. I'll select this option. Now here it is asking me to add another pipeline. Now this is where those BDS and DDS becomes helpful. Right? So I'm selecting the BDS and saying select. Now when I'm joining to, it is asking me how do I want to join them. Right? I want to join them based on the primary pipeline. And I'll say, so this is my primary pipeline. It shows me this is my secondary pipeline. And this is, why is there just one row? Do I have to do it all manually, which is actually strange because it shouldn't be doing. It is unioning only one output. I'm going to delete this. Give me a second. That combine. Let's me quickly see. So this is stable. So, okay, these are all numeric. So that. Okay, so this is my survey results one. Let's quickly see. So numeric 19.0, I'm adding a new manage field stage. Okay, this is why it was not joining, right? So here in this table, all these fields are identified as numeric,
Okay.
right? Whereas in this data set, base data set, they are all identified as integer. So
Okay.
in a union stage would only join those fields which are exactly same. Now,
Okay.
why did it join employee ID? Because employee ID is text here and it is also text here,
Okay. Okay.
right? So I'll change it to numeric. The default is 19 digits before, 0 digits after. I'll leave it as is because that's what we have in this table as well. So it's numeric 19.0. And that is what I'll do for all the other fields as well. Okay, and I'll say it done. So in my base data set as well, what I've done is I have added a manage field stage. So my base data set only has one pipeline. That pipeline has two stages. So the output of the final stage of your primary pipeline is the output of the entire data set. So when I do a union, it will do a union between this table and the output of this data set, which has only numeric fields, which is basically the, output of this stage, which is basically the output of the entire data set. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm selecting ZF training details. What I'll have to do is I'll have to cancel this. I'll have to delete this pipeline. So currently I tried adding the pipeline, but
Okay.
then I selected the pipeline. I didn't union it, right?
Okay.
So when I
Okay.
came out, it shows me that this pipeline is still there. And
Okay.
because I selected that pipeline before making changes to my base data set, it still
Mm-hmm.
has those old values.
Okay.
So I'll click on change pipeline. It shows me that this is my primary pipeline and there is also this additional pipeline. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and delete it first.
Okay.
Right? I'll go ahead and save my data set. I'll go back to my primary pipeline. So when I click here, it takes me back to my primary pipeline.
Okay.
Okay, my base data set is already saved. I'll go ahead and add the union stage now.
Mhm.
Now it asks me to select another pipeline. So I'm selecting base data set, select. Now, if you see, it is
Okay.
doing that perfect match,
Okay.
right? So what it is saying is, this is your primary pipeline with all these fields.
Mm-hmm.
This is your additional pipeline with all these fields. And
Okay.
the output would be this. So it is
Okay.
creating this new union output, which is
Okay.
employee ID. If I want, I can rename it now.
Okay.
This employee ID is a union of this employee ID in primary pipeline
Mm-hmm.
and this employee ID in your additional pipeline.
Okay.
Similarly, this year is an union of these two values.
Okay.
It shows me that sample rows, a preview, and here I can see that exact match.
Okay.
Okay,
But
and
you have
now
17 fields, so those 5 fields are the
additional fields.
say,
So if I
uh,
want to validate that, when I come here, if you see, this has those 17 fields in this
okay.
table, which is what I see here. My primary pipeline is my table,
Mm-hmm.
right? It has those 17 fields. And because these fields don't exist in my base data set,
Okay.
right? It is only doing a mapping with the
Okay.
12 fields wherein mapping exists.
Okay.
And when I say done, so this has created my new derived data set. Now, what is
Okay.
the difference? The difference is my table. If I go to my table, if you see, this is what I was talking about. So we see a sample 20K rows
Right.
in any object. So if I go to my table, this table has 958 rows. If I go to my base data set, how many rows are there in my base data set?
455. That's what
400 something. So my combined derived data set has some 1400.
Okay. Can you go to the right in the down? Yeah.
In the base data set?
No, in the derived. Yeah. Go. Okay. It combined only the 12.
So this is base data set. This is derived data set. It has combined all those 12 fields.
Okay.
Plus it has combined data for 2020. It has combined data for 2021 and 22. So it has 958 plus 400, which is 1300, 1403 or some 13 in total.
Right. And if you don't mind me, can you show me the lineage as well between these?
Yeah, we'll just look at that. So I'm going to save this.
Okay.
I want to see the lineage from here. I can click here and I can go to view lineage.
Okay.
So this is my lineage now. So it is importing data from table survey details. It is importing data from base data set surveys details. And then it is creating this derived data set. Okay. So all these stages are very straightforward in Workday, right? It's kind of no-brainer. So we have union stage. Union stage combines data from similar fields in different data sets or tables or data sets and tables into a single field, right? A union stage can only be added to a derived data set. The schema of both pipelines. So it only combines those fields in the pipeline.
One quick question, maybe a dumb one. So the schema has to be matched as well between.
No, not. So when I say schema, there can be different number of rows. There can be different number of columns. It will only combine those fields which have the same field type. That's what it does. Okay, and that's what we saw, right? One had 17 fields.
Right. I thought because it created Workday related fields, I mean the extra columns. So that is the reason I asked the question. So
all right. So now we have, if you see, we have two derived data sets, right? One is this one, which has the combined survey results, which is this. And we have also created a derived data set already. Right. Now I want to join this data together. Right. So employee, I want to see what survey result they performed. Right. Okay. So for that, we already have. So for that, let me combine here. So this is my derived data set, which has import of employee details. We don't need this. I'll remove this. I'll remove this. Okay, so this has, if I click here, edit transformations. Okay, so this has that employee details in it, right? And we created this derived data set, added a manage field stage, and
Right.
this has the survey results. Now I want to bring this data together in the sense, if this is the employee number, if we come here, what survey results did that employee perform, right?
You
That's
don't
what
mind
I
me
want to do.
asking, so this one is fine. Can you go to the other one, other derived data set, and in the manage field, which field did we add?
We didn't add any fields. We
Okay,
only removed these WPA fields,
okay,
right?
okay. We just removed those. Okay, okay, okay.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Now, however, there is a problem. The problem is when I want to see this person 21578, I want to see, okay, what was his survey in 2020? What survey did he perform in 2021? And what survey did he perform in 2022? That's how I want to see this data, right? So for each employee, let's say employee number 1 or EMP1, I want to see, okay, in 2020, this was his survey answer. For question 1, it was 5. Question 2, it was 6. Once again, for employee 1, for 2021, for question 1, his survey was 6. Here it was 5. Again, employee 1, 2022, it was 4 and 9. So this is how I want to see the data.
Okay.
Currently, the way it is structured is in DDS1, we have employee 1 and employee 2 and so on and so forth. And in DDS2, we have these survey results,
Right.
right? Now,
Right.
for getting this data together, this is where I would need the primary key,
Okay.
right? Or a key which will allow me to bring this data together,
Okay.
right? Now, there is a problem here. The problem is here, the employee ID is simply
Numeric.
2157.
Right.
And here, so in both these cases, it is text. So if I
Right.
go to manage field stage, the field type is text, but then the values are different, right? Here we have suffixed or prefix and E before it, right? Now I
Right.
have to remove this prefix. And how do I do that? I'll do a calculated field, right? Now, just as a best practice, I'll add a manage field stage, right?
Okay.
I could have simply added a calculated field here. It doesn't make any difference,
Okay.
but I would add a manage field stage and I'll say it done.
Okay.
Right? Now in this manage field stage, I'll add a new calculated field. Now all calculated fields are added by Workday to the end of the object.
Okay.
So the moment I click on add field, my new field gets added.
Okay.
Right? I would go ahead and rename this field. I'll calling it employee ID. Right? Workday by default identifies the field type as text,
Okay.
but the kind of function you perform determines the field type.
Okay.
Right? Now here I want to get a substring.
Right.
So this is my field info. The moment I clicked on add field, Workday automatically added this field info, wherein I changed the field name. I have these field types as well. I don't have an option to change the field type. Now I want to add a function, right? So I'll click on this function library, which opens on the side, right? And it shows me all the functions which are available.
Okay.
So I'll go to text because I want to do something with text. And when I search here, either I can search directly here in the search function, but I can navigate from here as well.
Okay.
So I want a substring. I can click on this plus icon and it will add it here. So when I click on plus, if you see the function itself gets added.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know how to perform this substring. So I'll click on this and it gives me an example, also a description. So substring is a row function. that returns the specified character of a string value based on the given start and optional end position. And it also gives me a small syntax. Now, as I mentioned, it is the function that you perform which determines the return field type.
Right.
So the output of a substring function is a field of type text.
Right.
Right. And it gives me how to perform a function.
Okay.
Right. Now I can add it here, or I can click on this icon, which will take me to a different window. So this is basically a single screen layout.
Okay.
Or I can click here, which takes me here.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Once again, I can go in here. I want to understand, okay, I'm not very good in it. So I'll go in here. I can once again expand it, and this gives me that clue. Okay, so now I want to refer another column in my data set, right? So I want to take that employee ID. So whenever you want to refer another column, you would add these square brackets.
Okay.
All I've done is I have added square bracket, the starting square bracket. Workday automatically adds the ending square bracket.
Okay.
And then the moment I add a square bracket, it shows me all fields in my data set.
Okay.
The reason it's showing this is because this
It's
is
a
a
numeric.
lengthy field.
Okay.
And this is a lengthy field, right?
Okay.
So this is numeric, which is fine. So it shows me this is a text field. It shows me this is a numeric field, but it's not showing me the names of these fields because it has that, do you want to this, because the field name is big. It is, but if I select this, if you see, it adds that.
Okay.
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 But I don't want to add this.
Right.
So I would once again add this, and I want to select employee ID.
Okay.
Now, what is the function says? Followed by comma. I want to start at 1, right? Because I want to exclude my first character, which is E, right? So I want to start with character 1, and I think it should be N. I don't think we can do it dynamically. I'll just say 8. Let me apply this. When I apply it, it will run and it will give me the output.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I change it to, let's say 3, let's see what happens. I'll click on enter. It will get me. Okay, so which means I have to get 6. Yeah. All right. So this is my new calculated field that I have created. I'll go ahead and save my derived data set. Right now, the output of this manage field stage is the output of this entire primary pipeline. Now I can join this primary pipeline, which is employee survey details. Sorry. Now I can join this data set, right, with my employee details data set. Right. And that join would happen on the output of each data set. So what is the output of this employee survey details? It is the output of the final stage of the primary pipeline of this data set.
Okay.
Okay. So now I want to add a new stage. Right. See, at this point in time, I could have done the join on any data set, which means but I want my employee details to be on the left hand side. It acts as the primary value. That's why I'm doing a join on the importer survey details.
Okay.
So I'm clicking on add stage. Now here, so in union, it basically adds the number of cells, right? There were survey results for 2020 and 21. I want to add it to the survey results of 2022. So I did a union, right? Union, what does it do? It takes all the columns from one pipeline. So there are 100 columns in pipeline 1. There are 150 columns in pipeline 2. My union will give me 250 columns, right? It takes 100 columns from here, 150 columns from here. That's what
No,
this did,
columns,
right?
rows or columns?
Sorry. So there are 100 rows in
Okay.
my primary pipeline in one object, 150 in other one. It gives me 250 rows. The number of columns could be the same or less, right? That's what we saw.
Right.
The number of rows would be added.
Added. Right.
The number of columns could be 100 or less.
Right.
The reason it is 100 is because the
It's
smaller
Right.
has 100.
Right.
With join, it works the other way. With join, what I'm trying to do is my first object, let's say, has 50 columns. My second object has 20 columns. Now here, I'm trying to identify a primary key in both these objects based on which I want to join the columns here. So ultimately, my join would give me anywhere from 50 to 70 columns.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm adding a new stage here.
So
I'm adding.
We can add the join either on the employee data or
We can
on
do
the
that.
survey data. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter. But because survey, we need a per row survey, you are doing the pipeline in the survey.
No, I'm doing the pipeline in employee details.
Oh, in the employee details.
Details, right? So I'm doing a join on the employee details DDS. Right? I'm coming here. I'm doing a join. It is asking me to select another pipeline. I'm selecting another pipeline, and the pipeline I'm selecting is DDS import of survey details. Basically, this pipeline. Right. So I'm selecting this. Let's say select. Okay, now it is asking me to identify that primary key based on which this join would happen. So here I want employee ID. And I want, it shows me, because this is a text field, it shows me, oh, there are just 2 text fields, and I'm selecting the second one. If I select the first one, nothing happens, right? There wouldn't be any output. So I'm selecting the second one. Okay, do you understand the different types of joins? Left outer join, inner join.
But it's been a while, I'll be honest with you, because we don't use joins in Workday.
Yeah, exactly.
And in SAP, we have, what do you say? There is just inner join and there is only one other join. We don't use the remaining 2. So
okay. Even I'm not very good in Excel, but what is left outer join? Now this is how the left outer join works. Let's say I have object 1, or in this case, let's say table 1, which has employee ID and name. And then we have table 2, which has employee ID. And let's say the equipment these employees hold. So my employee ID A1, his name is Logan. A2, her name is Steve. Okay. Now employee ID A1, she holds a laptop. Employee ID A1, she, just for the sake of it, also has a key. Now employee ID A3 holds a desktop. Okay. Now when I do a left outer join, what I'm saying is take the left object, right? Take all rows of the left object. So my output table, my join table, will have these 2. Because I'm doing a left outer join, it will take these 2 and then only join it with those values which match in the right side object. So here A1 matches here, right? So it will get me equipment from here. which is laptop. A1 also matches another object. So it also gets me mouse.
Right.
And it gets me object from here. So what it is doing is it is getting, but because A3 doesn't match, it doesn't get me object from here.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is left outer join, take the left object, get all data from left object, only get data from right object if there is a match with the left object.
Okay.
So my row output would be this.
Okay.
If I do a right outer join, so this is left outer join. If I do a right outer join again, so then this is what it does. It takes the right object and then it gets everything from right object. So basically this is what I'll have the case of right outer join. And here, because there is a match with Logan, it only gets me Logan from here. Everything else it leaves as blank. Right?
It will populate Logan in the second row as well, or no?
No, it won't. It is A1, right? Yeah,
A1.
Sorry. So it will populate. So wherever there is a match, it populates data, same as this case, right? Wherever there is a match, it populates data. And then there is an inner join. So inner join says get only only that data wherein there is a perfect match. So if you look at, so left outer join, if you see the left side is grayed out. So it is trying to match everything with left hand side. When I say right outer join, it is trying to do a match with the right side. When I say inner join, it is only getting me those values, which is an intersection. So
in
now
this case, it will not match anything, right?
It will match A1.
Just A1.
So it will get me employee ID. So this is how it will look. It will get me A1. So this is my inner join result. So only where there is a perfect match, it gets me object. Okay.
Between
so
table
left
1
out
and table 2, you have only one match with respect to employee ID, right? Because there is no name and there is no equipment in table. So
join is happening with respect to unique key. It is not happening with respect to, with respect to join, what I'm saying is if there is a match between the primary keys that I have selected, then get all the columns with respect to it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
It's been a while, so I totally forgot.
So because A1 matches, it gets all data from here and joins it with all data from here.
Okay.
So it doesn't get any A2 or A3. And with respect to full outer join, I'm saying only get data wherein there is no match.
Okay.
So when I do a full outer join, then this is what it is going to get me. It is going to get me A2 Steve, because A2 Steve doesn't have a match here. And then it will get me A3 desktop. Makes sense?
Yep.
Okay, so in our case, I want to do a left outer join. That's the one gets defaulted. And it is asking me, how do I want to do a join? Right? So on the primary pipeline, I want to join employee ID with the employee ID on the secondary pipeline. Right? Then it is asking me to decide which fields to select from the primary pipeline. So this is where your confusion. So wherever there is a match, I'm saying select all the fields from the primary pipeline. So this is what I'm saying. Wherever there is a match in the left outer join, select employee ID as well as name from the primary pipeline. So both of those get selected. So this is what I'm saying. Select all the fields from the primary pipeline. From the secondary pipeline, I don't want to select employee ID, right? Because if I select employee ID, it would be duplicate. So once again, I'm saying select all, and then I'm removing this employee ID as well as this employee ID, right? Because both of them are duplicate.
Right.
So So that ensures that I don't have these duplicate values. I have employee ID, name, and equipment, the only unique values that or columns that I'm looking for. I can do a preview. Right. So now if you see for 21578, which is exactly what we are getting, right? So wherever there is a match, because here there is a match between two different rows. So for A1, it is getting me 2 rows, right? This gets repeated, A1 Logan, and then this gets. So this is exactly what is happening. For 21578, everything in the left table gets repeated till it reaches here, wherein I have 2020, 21, and 22.
Okay.
And I'll say done. So now it has the total fields is 33.
Right.
Right? Okay.
I thought the row count will be more, but again,
it is more.
Okay.
But I'm just checking why is there no survey results for 2020 or 21101. So it is starting from 21578. Let me check. So this is my manage field stage. So 2101. Why does this doesn't have? Okay.
I think the
Okay, that's fine because we only, okay, this is what has happened. So what I've done is import of employee details. If you remember, this is my derived data set, which is basically an import of this table, right? So if I go in here, let me show you the lineage. So if I do a view lineage, basically I've not imported that data.
Okay.
So this is my table, right? No, sorry. This is my ZF training employee details, right? This is my table.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Where is that? Yeah, this one. So this is that table wherein I ran my custom report and imported employee details into this table. But when I ran that report, see what has happened is I have only ran that report, I think for year 2020 or something. So it only has 21578 and so. So when I move to the right to see the effective date, if you see it only has 2020 data. So I should have imported data for 2021 and 2022. Right? That was my whole idea, right? If you remember, that's why we added the effective. So as of 2021 and 22, there is no employee 2001 and so on and so forth. So the employee for whom these survey results are there, right? Those employees itself don't exist. So now let me run that report. Prism. Prism. That's why this becomes confusing as the complexity increases.
Right.
Else, the logic itself is pretty simple. So I ran this report only for 2020, and that is the data we have. And when
Right.
I run it, it has 2001 data as well. Why is that? Yeah, it does have 2001 data, 2101. Import of survey details. Let me see how many. Sort ascending. Yeah, that's fine. There is data. So if you see, it has all those values. That's fine. So at least for 2020, I got confused because yeah, it has those values. So for year 2020, it has all the values. But still, what I should have done is I should have run this report or this data, this table for year 2021 and 22 as well. So let's go ahead and do that now. This will also tell us what happens if we have to update new data, right? How would our, so first thing I'll do is I'll edit schema and I'll add the name table to it, TBL, and done. Okay, then I'll create a data change task, right? That's what we have to do for importing data into. But for that, first I'll go ahead and update my report, because now we want to run this report for 2021, right? And we don't have any options with respect to defining.
And you will append the data, right?
Right. So all I'm doing is in the prompt, I'm saying run it for 2021. And when I run it now, if you see, now it will get me data for 2021. So with respect to a data change task, I'm saying change connection. I'm saying Workday report. If you remember, the problem with a table is we cannot specify that prompt values.
Right.
And that's why we said wherever there are prompt values, defaults will have to be specified. Right. Okay. So I'm selecting employee details now. Prism employee details, this table. And when I say next, I want to insert data, right? So I still want the data of 2020 to be retained. I want to add data of 2021. That's what I want to do. There are other options as well. So as part of this data change task, I can delete data, right? I can truncate all existing data and then insert new data. I can only update data. So which means wherever there is a match and there is a change, it will go ahead and do that. Or I can update data wherever there is a match and insert everything new. Right. So in our case, I just want to insert new data. It is asking me for a mapping. So yes, this is exactly how my mapping would look. So in this employee ID in my table, this field of the report will feed in. So it does a mapping, and you have the option to go ahead and make changes if there are any. This has 27 fields because Workday has automatically added these fields. Right. So I see that the map is perfect. Each field of the report maps to the correct field in my table, and it shows me this example. So this is how it would look. And I'll say next, and I'll say save and run now. When I do that, it has submitted my data change task. My data change activity is running. So it is retrieving data. So when I last retrieved data on employee details, it retrieved 483 rows, right? That's what we see in the table right now. So this time it should import 470 new rows. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and again update this report, and I'll add 2022 so that we also run it for 2022. I shouldn't have done that. Let me first let this to complete. Okay, so it has imported 470 rows for 2021. Now I'm running it for 2022, which means it should get me 464 rows for 2022. Let's quickly have a look at our table.
Right, it should be somewhere around 970.
So now there are 953 rows. Right? So if I sort this in an ascending order, there are, wherever there is an employee who existed in a given year, so there are multiple rows for him. So 1001 probably got terminated. Right? Okay, I want to create a new data change task now. So I'll come here. I'll create a new data change task. I'll change the connection because default it is asking me to load data through a file.
Right.
I'll change the connection. I'm still saying get data from this report. Again, I want the data to be inserted. This is a perfect match. I'll say next.
Upsert or insert?
Sorry?
Upsert or insert?
Insert.
Insert.
Right? So I'm selecting insert because that's what I want to do, right?
Okay.
I want this to be a trending output.
Right. Right.
We'll say save and run. So this time, some 464 new records should get added. Okay, so 464 new records are successful, which means if I go to my table now,
so 39P.
There should be some
1413 record.
So I have, if I sort it in ascending order, wherever there is value, let's see for some of the latest employees. So 2102, for example, Steve Morgan and Logan McNeil, because they are still active.
Right.
I have data for them for all 3 years. Right?
Right.
2000. So I would have data for 2020, 21, 22. Okay, this is our import stage. Let's go to data catalog, refresh it, and then go to import of employee details once again. So this time, okay, now if you see wherever there is, let's see what is happening. 2020, 21. Yeah. So now if I search for Logan McNeil as an example, let's search for, I think we'll have to do it this way. So this is Logan McNeil. So if I see row number 69, 70, 71, and move to the right. So if you see 69 is for 2021. 2000. What effective date is this? Let's start from our first imports stage.
That's what I was about to ask. Do we need to update the derived data set?
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
That's what I'm checking. So if I search for Logan McNeil, once again, if you see it has, yeah. So if you see Logan McNeil, it has now data imported automatically for 2020 10, 2021 10, and 2022 10. And this is I'm clicking on import stage right now. Right. Let's click on manage field stage. Once again, I have all 1400 records, which is what we saw here as well. So 1417. Right. Join stage. This is where I think we may have to update it. Let's search for Logan once again. Where is Logan? Where is Logan? Yes. Okay, now it's updated automatically. Okay, so now instead of 3, so what it is doing for 2101 in year 2020, it is joining it with all the 2020 relevant values.
Okay.
There is actually one more thing we should have done. So when we did a join, I should have done a join on 2 parameters. So if you see what is happening is, so for Logan, now Logan in the primary key has 3 records, right? It has 2020 10, and then we have Logan 2021 10, and then we have Logan 2022 10, right? And my secondary one has 3 records once again. For 2020, her survey is 9. 2021, her survey is, let's say, 8. 2022, her survey is 10. Right? Now, currently what Workday has done is, if you see for Logan, there are some 9 different cells.
Right.
So what Workday has done is, it has this with all 3. It has clubbed this with all 3. It has clubbed this with all 3. This is Logan's record for 2020. I want this to be joined with this. So this is what I want. I want this to be joined with this. So ultimately, after the join, I still only want 3 rows for Logan McNeil. Right? So how do you think I should have changed my join?
Add one more primary key.
So yes. So I should have done. So currently I'm doing a join only on employee ID. I should have done one more match. But the problem here is, once again, if you see what I've done
format is not exactly
right. So here I have 2020 10 and 2020. Right. Once again, I could have selected the same format, but then we'll go ahead and add one more calculation and bring both these formats to match.